I have quietly been fascinated with all of the inner machinations of the Catholic Church, especially when I found out that they just have pieces of bones of saints that they just ship off to every church around the planet. I think that's the most metal thing you can do. When I found that out, I was like, this is kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's freaky, but it's also kind of sick. Anyway, we need to perpetuate the rumors of JD Vance being demonic. Perpetuate the rumors? You mean the truth, chatter? What rumors? JD Vance visited the Pope. The Pope immediately died after JD Vance visited him. I'm sorry, that's demonic. That's not a rumor at that point, okay? That's just what happened, what took place. Yeah. Jorkin the Peanuts Vance, dude. Just kill the Pope Vance. Market is tanking. What the fuck, man? Chatter, that is every day. Community notes agree with you. I just learned of the passing of Pope Francis. My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. I was happy to see him yesterday, but though he was obviously very ill, but I'll always remember him for the below homily he gave in the very early days of COVID. It was really quite beautiful. May God rest his soul. The Pope died shortly after touching JD Vance's demonic hand. He might be the Antichrist. It's true. He is. He is. He is. He is the Antichrist. He is literally from the Antichrist administration. He was the envoy, a servant of the devil. He was a servant of the devil. Dude, there is nothing funnier to me than how much right-wing administrations in general, but specifically the Trump administration, plays the role of like biblical Satan so perfectly. Okay? 4 horsemen of the apocalypse type shit on a regular basis. Measles cases are popping off. There's mass disease, death and destruction everywhere. You have your second in command, the shadow president, who is literally a lizard person, can't even behave normally, Elon Musk. Not only is he a lizard person, but he's trying to put microchips in people's brains. They're doing black bagging operations for the state of Israel for the crime of saying mean things about the apartheid state, doing a genocide. Okay? Mass disease everywhere. Very clearly, these guys are trying to nuke everything. These are the end of times, and virtually all of the people that are supposed to believe in angels and Jesus Christ coming back to earth or whatever, unironically love this guy. How is this possible? If you are hallucinating on a daily basis that the end times are near, well, these guys are bringing it. They're bringing it to you. And you still are just like, hell yeah, nah, you don't understand. It's actually them goddamn lipdars that are bringing the end of times, not my president. It's like, what do you want? What more can you see from this administration that will cause you to go, you know what? Maybe these guys are not the good guys here. It doesn't make any sense. Everything that these guys complained about, 1984, free speech is falling apart, they're doing. Your guys are doing it, and you don't see it. What are we doing here? It blows my mind. Dude, the guy, the servant of Satan, went and shook the hand of the holiest holy man of Catholicism and killed him. And you're still going, I don't care. There are massive tornadoes and earthquakes ripping up the land on a daily basis. The end times are near. It makes me so mad because I don't believe in any of that shit, okay? I don't believe in any of that shit, but you do. You believe it. So why don't you see the things that you believe? It's unfolding in front of your eyes. It makes me so mad. It makes me so mad. These guys are fake. They're phony rapture enjoyers. The real rapture is happening, and these don't see it. Oh, Luca Big Pants. My theory so far, evil gas, invisible laser beam. No, my favorite is that this actually separates, this actually will cause anti-Semitic infighting. Okay, are you ready for this? Here's why it's going to cause anti-Semitic infighting. For the real anti-Semitism enjoyers, the real heads know that one of the oldest anti-Semitic conspiracies is that the Pope is secretly controlled by the Jews. Okay? They think that, you know, the entire Catholic Church, the entirety of the Vatican is controlled by Jews, right? So this is going to cause a separation between the different anti-Semites, because some of them are going to say, well, the Pope is controlled by the Jews, and that's why J.D. Vance assassinated him, because, you know, I don't know, he's just, he's based. He's my based Omega Groiper-pilled secret neo-Nazi who is hiding their secret base levels or whatever. But then the other people are also going to be mad, because they're going to say J.D. Vance actually killed him because the Pope has been too critical of Israel. J.D. Vance used the new secret Israeli poison to kill the Pope. Now, of course, the reality is the Pope was 88 years old, okay? Just let's make no mistake here. This is not like he died so young type situation. Like, oh, how could this have happened? Like, he was very sick and he was very much 88 years old. I'm pretty sure that part of the reason why part of the reason why they allowed this woke ass Pope to be Pope to begin with was because he was already living on borrowed time, when they were like, oh yeah, we'll just slot this guy in. Maybe we'll tweak the Catholic Church's like PR a little bit, okay? Because we've been getting kind of a bad rap with all the pedophilia and also all the Nazi stuff. You know what I mean? So then he just survived. He just stayed alive for a lot longer than the expectation was. And in the process, he actually rebuilt the covenant too. I'm going to get into this because, like, this has been a quiet fascination of mine. Okay? Given the Pope's background, I've talked about this before. I have quietly been fascinated with all of the inner machinations of the Catholic Church, especially when I found out that they just have pieces of bones of saints that they just ship off to every church around the planet. I think that's the most metal thing you can do. Okay. When I found that out, I was like, this is kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's freaky, but it's also kind of sick. Anyway, but this Pope is woke. Okay. He is significantly more woke than any other Pope that has ever existed. And you know, that was unexpected. Certainly. That was definitely unexpected. Okay. He is a Pope that followed, ironically enough, the socialist tradition, which is hilarious to think. He wasn't a Nazi. So that's like, immediately you're like, you have elevated above many of the previous popes. Like, the fact that the only like conservative perspectives that he had was that you know, no women still, and also no abortion, is crazy. He was pro-trans, dude. He was goddamn pro-trans. Like, that is psychotic. You can't have a pope. You can't have the leader of Catholicism be more woke than a beloved child's book author, J.K. Rowling. Do you understand? He wasn't pro-trans. Dog. He invited trans people to the Vatican, dude. What are you talking about? That is the most pro-trans you will get as the Pope. Like, we're talking about the Pope. When we talk about the Pope being progressive, it's not going to look like the sweaty anarchists in your commune. Yes, the Pope wasn't abiding by Z-Zir pronouns. I know. He was 88 years old. Please, adjust your expectations. I know. It's so funny because, like, I think this caused a major rift within the different Catholic, like the different the different Catholic churches in like America too, because the American one is like freakish. I'm putting my vote for the Swagapino Pope, by the way, just Pinoy gang. Much respect. Hopefully he'll be the one. I was looking into the background of all the other popes as well. There's a really funny list out there of all of the different like positions of all of the other like top contenders. And obviously we'll look into that as well. Who are the favorites to succeed Pope Francis? Now, one of the things that Pope Francis did, by the way, I'm going to get to his background in a second, but one of the things that Pope Francis did while he was alive, all the way up until the very last moment, because he knew he was living on borrowed time, was to basically bring in a bunch of super progressive popes, super progressive priests into the covenant. Like he packed the courts, or cardinals, not priests. Sorry, he packed the courts. The internal machinations of voting for the next pope is. I'm sure you guys have watched Conclave, so you're like somewhat familiar with it. But he added a bunch of cardinals that were woke as, with the hopes that he could continue his legacy of moving the Catholic Church in a progressive direction. I don't want this list. There's a better list than this one out there. There's the one that like looks like a Hearts of Iron 4 list. Yeah, please read the clear confusion. He welcomed trans people and even trans sex workers, but was against gender affirming surgeries and the idea that gender was fluid. Yes. What is this? This is from Colin Bodale. So they were all Bible quotes, and the students guessed that every single one was Marx, lecturing on liberation theology today from my PowerPoint. Yeah, he's a philosophy professor, Colin Bodale. I wanted to use this back in the day. I guess we could do that as well. Oh, this is the one. No, not this one. Not this. Yes, this. This is amazing. I love the way that they structured this, by the way. What website is this? Need to see a clearer pic? You can right click and open image in the new tab for a clear review. There's no website. I made the pic, but derped on the font size. I love this. I love this image. I love this graphic. Let's have a conclave. Oh, inside the conclave. All right. Lamat actually looks like Hearts of Iron 4, man. How did you even make that connection, though? What do you mean, dude? What, like, this is a pro-trans community. Like, obviously, as soon as I saw this, I was like, this literally is lined up like a Paradox game, dude. Anyway, you're on Pop Crave Twitter. If there's an American Pope, I will kill myself. Dude, the American Pope is one of the worst. Okay? The American Pope sucks. He is dog shit. I cannot stress this enough. Shocking absolutely nobody. I must repeat, the American Pope is awful. Awful. Awful choice. The German one, I think, is the Pope that I saw that was talking about how Muslims are actually invading Europe. That's another demon. I think we're due for another Nazi Pope. Okay. Like, the Catholic Church could not maintain this like woke outlook for as long as it did. I'm telling you, Cardinal, not Pope yet. Yes, the German Cardinal. I'm saying like if the German one becomes a Pope, it's gonna be devastating.
About 14.
Here, let's look at the process of how the new Pope is decided. Okay, here. And no, I'm not going to do the CGP Grey video because he hates when people watch his shit.
Days after the death or resignation of a pope, a conclave is called. Okay, Jack, so who's next?
Well, there's about a dozen frontrunners, but I think that the main one at the moment, Pietro Parolin. Now, he's the Vatican's Secretary of State, and so he knows all the secrets for some significant amount of time, all the skeletons. And there's a reason that he's a frontrunner, because he's considered to be a steady hand.
Pietro Parolin is Pope Francis's chief advisor, and he's been his emissary advocating for climate change mitigation around the world.
The destruction of the environment is an offense against God, a sin that is not only personal but also structural.
And there's also the Philippines Cardinal, Luis Antonio Tagle. He's also fairly moderate.
Children, what do you see in your parents? A gift or an ATM card? Parents, what do you see in your children? A gift or a burden?
We've got Cardinal Peter Erdo from Hungary. Now, he was a very close friend of Cardinal George Pell. He's very popular amongst all of the cardinals. And then you've got people like, will the church go and elect someone who's from the Congo? Fridolin Ambongo is somebody who...
Okay, I thought that they were going to actually show the process instead of just like who the top contenders are. Yeah, here, this is the important part of it. 108 out of the 135 cardinals who are going to be eligible to vote in the next papal conclave were consecrated by Francis. Like, I'll concede that this doesn't necessarily mean Tagle is a lock to win or anything, but the chance that the next pope is going to suddenly be antithetical to Francis is very low. He was a kind and humble guy. He did know how to play palace politics. He stacked the odds. I've seen most of the frontrunners listed as conservative, though. Francis seemed to prioritize cardinals for diversity of the Master Church's global presence, which makes a lot of sense. But from what I've read, it doesn't seem like he was selecting for ideological alignment. It's 110, not 108. But yeah, god damn, you guys are so locked in on Catholicism. It's crazy. And no, the black pope is not, the black cardinal is not a good contender either. I'm pretty sure he's like very conservative too. The one from Ghana, at least, I think, is a conservative one. Here, let's watch the conclave process.
The customs of the Catholic Church are clear and carefully orchestrated.
Dude, this is kind of sick. Like, look. I'll say it like this. In this day and age where everything is McDonald's, everything is burger, everything is gun burger, it is kind of cool to see these guys like do something so silly, okay? Do something so insane where they just like still dress like this. They go to the same institution that has been around for, thousands, 1,000 plus years. Like, it's cool. It's cool when everything's computer, but the Pope is not computer. I like that. I like that. That's like kind of cool. I think it's dope. This is why so many ex-Catholics love Warhammer 40K. Yeah. Catholicism is low-key goth and metal as shit while also being mean girls in red robes. Yeah.
Once the period of mourning is done, the centuries-old tradition to elect a new pope known as the conclave.
I love the aesthetic of the Catholic Church, but despise the molesting of kids. Yeah, no shit. Dude, that's so funny. Yeah, that's pretty bad. I agree.
And shrouded in secrecy, gets underway. Over the next 2 weeks, cardinals under the age of 80 from across the globe will descend on Vatican City, holding a series of formal meetings known as general congregations, and more informal, direct conversations too.
And keep in mind that cardinals are human beings, they're
thank you for
political
the
animals.
5 gifted subs.
As well, they will be meeting in various places. You know, Cardinal X will say to Cardinal Y, I've been...
Like, this, in my opinion, is way cooler than, the British monarchy. Like, I don't know why, but I think this is... I don't know why, but I find this to be, like, way cooler than I don't know, the shit that, like, the British monarchy does and all of the bells and whistles associated with it.
Talking about this to Cardinal Zed.
You would have been a hilarious Catholic.
Let's go have a pizza.
It all comes down to the voting. The process so fascinating, so mysterious, it's been recreated in the blockbuster hit Conclave.
We're about to choose the most famous man in the world.
And 1.25 billion souls watching.
The word conclave comes from Latin, meaning
You've never been in a Mormon temple? Say what you will about the church as a whole, but the rituals are pretty neat. Yeah, but the Mormons made that shit up too recently for me to take it seriously. That's the difference. Do you not understand? My point is, this shit has been around for a lot longer than the Mormon church has. Like, I'm sorry, if your rituals were rewritten in like 1987, it's gonna be very difficult for me to take it seriously. Like Mormonism across the board, like has very cool churches and yada yada. I know it's great, whatever. But like this, the same halls in the same space they're occupying for the past 2,000 years, dude. Are you kidding me? That's huge.
Locked with a key. The cardinals are sealed inside the Sistine Chapel, as Michelangelo's frescoes bear witness. No phones, no electronics of any kind, not even any notes. After day one, there are 4 rounds of secret ballots every day, until one name receives a 2/3 majority. Back in 2013, Francis was elected after just 2 days. And this year, the list swirling of likely contenders who may be pontiff material spans the globe from Asia to Africa to the Holy Land to Europe and Canada. Will the next pope be someone close to Francis, set to continue his legacy, or a more conservative voice set on pulling back Francis's progressive agenda?
No.
Also, age is very important. The Vatican is a very strange place because someone who is 65 or 70 is considered too young. Very few cardinals want another papacy that lasts another 30 years.
As the secret voting continues, the cardinals burn the ballots twice a day, and the masses outside await.
And once they get the 2/3 majority vote, the one that they burn is burned with like a chemical that turns white.
The smoke. Black smoke means no pope yet, and white smoke announces a pope has been chosen.
Okay, that was a fascinating look at what comes next. Let's talk a little bit more about the timeline. The funeral, of course, later this week. Preparations for the conclave already getting underway today, is that right?
Yeah, it's already beginning, Craig.
Yeah, look, even the adopted name of Francis comes from, I think, like the humble aesthetics of the Pope. Like he said he wanted not like a crazy funeral, but a normal one, which probably is not going to happen, obviously, because he's the Pope. Chad is Catholic on this day. We are all Catholic today. We are all in support of our Catholic brothers and sisters on this beautiful day. Yeah, amen. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed by thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Amen. Anyway, if the Philippine got a pope, we are never getting abortion and divorce. That's so funny. All right. Conclave, 15 to 20 days after death, usually 2 to 3 days long.
Just getting news of the laying of the Pope's body in the coffin happening tonight at 8 p.m. Local time in Rome. As you've mentioned, Craig, there are now 9 days of mourning. Well, of course, cardinals from around the world will be getting on planes as we speak, heading for the funeral and the conclave. Lots of decisions need to be made. These events will all be watched by billions around the world, not only Catholics, Craig, an important moment for the church. Craig.
Indeed. Our chief international correspondent, Keir Simmons, for us. Keir, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget.
So I will say that I will say that I think ultimately it doesn't really fucking matter. If the Pope is woke, clearly it doesn't necessarily change a lot of the global Catholic opinion on these issues. Or maybe I'm wrong and maybe I'm cynical and you guys will tell me that your Catholic parents have actually been convinced not to be as like hateful because of how woke this Pope is, you know? Maybe. I don't know. Not cynical, just naive. I think that, Pope Francis was a champion of so many progressive causes. And it's not like the Catholic world magically overnight turned into a ecumenical Marxist position. You know, they didn't turn around and behave like liberation theologists. Maybe it's because my perspective is a little bit busted by looking at the most reactionary people on the planet, which is Americans. And American Catholics, albeit much nicer than American Protestants, evangelical Protestants, are still obviously incredibly reactionary in comparison to the Pope. So that part is what is guiding me to assume that not a lot of people were listening to the Pope, at least in the United States of America. Okay? I would argue it did a lot of good on the LGBT side of things. They have a lot of power, but aren't going to be making any huge changes in the world order. Christianity is about 50-50 rep dem. It's the Protestants that are the real hogs. I have found that my American Catholic family members denied this Pope because he was too woke. If you're a liberal Catholic, check out Dorothy Day and the Catholic Worker. You agreed with him. If you were conservative, then you didn't like him. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of American Catholics who are incredibly reactionary in comparison to, especially this Pope, we're just like, this Pope is a fake Pope. I'm just gonna not listen to the things that he's saying. And then if you listen to the Protestants, he's a heretic anyway, because Protestants are mentally ill for the most part. You know who I'm talking about, okay? You know who I'm talking about. Don't take offense to what I'm saying. But American evangelical Protestantism, I think, is like singularly associated with severe, crippling mental illness, okay? It is crazy. Evangelicals are so psychotic, so insane. Like, they think the Catholicism is like heretical or whatever, right? They'll be like, the Pope is a symbol of the devil. That's one thing. They also literally are the first people that would lynch Jesus Christ if he were to return to earth. Okay? No Megiddo, no fighting the devil's forces, none of that. Why? Because an evangelical Protestant hog would literally get out of a Dallas megachurch, go to his F-150 pickup truck that's lifted, grab his AR-15 and spray him, okay? If Jesus Christ came back on earth, he would get lynched by Sunday in the aftermath of a church gathering on Sunday if he were to ever arrive at a Dallas megachurch parking lot. It wouldn't even get to like ICE deporting him. They would literally melt him on the spot. Anyway, Pope Francis championed historically progressive stances. Let's take a look at some of those stances, okay? First, why it matters. His advocacy often clashed with the church's more conservative wing, particularly after the pontiff criticized conservative theologians' suicidal attitude towards social change. Francis aimed to give women more leadership roles in church governance. In January, he named the first woman to head a major Vatican office. On climate change, Francis was outspoken against climate change and cast blame on wealthy countries for global warming. Unfortunately, we've gotten to a point of no return, he said in a 2024 CBS News interview. It's sad, but that's what it is. Global warming is a serious problem. Climate change at this moment is a road to death. Francis in 2015 called pollution a sin and cited a moral obligation for international agreements to combat the effects of global warming, per the Washington Post. On LGBTQ plus people, Francis expanded the church's acceptance of same-sex couples and transgender people. In 2023, Francis granted priests the ability to bless same-sex couples under certain circumstances. This rule change didn't alter the church's doctrine concerning same-sex marriage, holding that the blessings cannot be given at the same time as a civil union and can't resemble weddings in any way. He said laws that criminalize homosexuality were unjust. He also decided transgender people could be baptized within the Catholic Church and serve as godparents. But in May, he apologized after reports resurfaced that he used a slur to refer to gay men in a closed-door meeting, which, by the way, canonically, he used a term that Austin and I and many others believe is exclusive to gay men. And I think that he used the F slur in a very gay way and not in a way where he was being homophobic. He did it in a very funny way. He did it twice, not once, but twice. It was so firmly a part of his lexicon that he just could not stop using it. So all the gays loved him for it. So I think it's fine, right? If the gays weren't if the gays weren't on board with it, that would be something different. But the gays seemingly were very much on board with it. Okay. Immigration and world issues. Francis criticized the Trump administration in January and February for its plans to carry out mass deportation of migrants. He condemned deporting people who, in many cases, have left their own land for reasons of extreme poverty, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, or serious deterioration of the environment. He called for an investigation into whether Israel's military actions in Gaza legally constituted genocide. He criticized Israel's attacks on Palestinians and kept in regular touch with the parish priest of Gaza. He called them pretty much every day, by the way, the Gazan church. Like he was incredibly outspoken on Israel's genocide in Gaza. So there are a lot of things that the Pope did that put him in the crosshairs of some of the fucking worst demons within the Catholic Church and its structure, specifically Americans. He was very cool. He comes from a socialist background, a liberation theologist background. You know, some might criticize his actions in Argentina, initially claiming that he collaborated with the regime and allowed socialists to be slain in the process. And this is something that I've actually covered in the past, a couple of years prior. But overall, he was Hamas. The Pope was Hamas.
Buonasera, Santo Padre.
Buonasera, come stai?
Sto bene, grazie a Dio. Mi scusa, è stato con la Santa Messa.
Ah, con la messa. E dimmi,
sì.
Cosa avete mangiato oggi?
Del pollo, le ali. El resto del pollo. El resto del pollo, la salita che sta Santo Padre. Lo che quedò del pollo de ayer. Quasi tutti il compound qua ha mangiato pollo. Casi
Pollo.
todos los refugiados acá comieron pollo ayer.
Ieri hanno mangiato pollo.
Anche il doctor Atallah. E también el doctor. كلت فراخ النهارده دكتور؟ كلت
Dottore.
النهارده. الحمد لله.
Salam alaikum.
Anyway, it's sad. It's sad that it's sad. He was chill. He was better than he was much better than what the expectation is from a pope in general. Does anybody actually care what the Pope says? Does it matter having a woke pope versus a conservative pope at all? I think that a conservative pope has the capacity to ruin people's lives way harder, whereas a woke pope at the very least can like move the Catholic Church in a more positive direction, even if people don't want to listen to him. That's the way I see it. It's like much easier to push things in the rightward direction than it is in a leftward direction. That's the way I see it. Bro, Pope speaks to 1.2 billion people. Of course it has weight. If a Twitch streamer has weight, then the Pope has too. First of all, I don't think a Twitch streamer has that much weight. Okay, that's my, you know, I don't believe that the Twitch streamer has that kind of weight, that kind of motion. Yeah. But he considered what was going on in Gaza to be unconscionable and routinely checked in. And, you know, what more can you expect? Why are you acting as if it matters to the cardinal who's chosen as a Nazi when you know damn well that St. Peter will descend into their body and speak as God's emissary? It's not that the church has become more woke. God has. I like the hog Catholic saying that God is bad now. God is too woke. Yeah, I mean, this is a very famous pic. Here's Pope Francis cheerfully receiving a replica gift of hammer and sickle crucifix made by Luis Espinal, a human rights activist who was killed by a paramilitary death squad in 1980. A remembrance that we once had a pope who saw Jesus the carpenter, Christ the worker. Yep. Like he was very much in the Jesus Christ was a socialist and that heaven is a communist utopia camp, which is true. It literally is true. Under normal circumstances, Catholicism is supposed to be a firm part of the dialectics that constantly works to undermine capitalist dogma. And look how much motion the Pope had in that regard. Not a lot is what I'm saying. Like that's my point. Yes, it's Evo Morales. In this day and age, capitalism is so strong. Crazy, you haven't mentioned that he was an open communist yet? No, I did. My point is, and I remember this tweet. I remember covering this on the stream, I think. But our societies are too enslaved to market logic, and everything risks being subject to self-interest in the quest for profit. Volunteering is prophecy and a sign of hope because it bears witness to the primacy of gratuitousness, solidarity, and service to those most in need. Capitalism in and of itself is such a corruptive force that and is so successful, and capitalist dogmatic thought is so popular that even the goddamn Catholic Church can't undermine it. It is the true religion of the masses, in my opinion. Social justice is the core of the faith. Part of why I left the church is due to the people not following what they preach, is the doctrine to be SJWs. Exactly. Where is this? Hold on. Yeah. Also, Jay Schlatt said, all I'm saying is April will be an interesting month for Pope Francis, and now Pope Francis is dead. What did Jay Schlatt know? All right. Let's get to the news report, the special report from American News on the Pope.
A series of crises and challenges. He traveled the world and reached out to everyone he met, in particular, people who had often been overlooked or demeaned throughout the church's long history. CBS News senior correspondent Nora O'Donnell interviewed the Pope last year. She joins us now from Washington. Nora, good morning to you. A lot of people waking up just the way I did with the news that the Pope had passed away. When did you first hear about it? I saw you posted early this morning.
I know. I was up early and saw that news from our team in Rome, learning that the Pope had passed away, and clearly a huge surprise on this Easter Monday. It was just about a year ago when we sat down with Pope Francis, and he gave CBS News the first ever one-on-one interview by a pope to a U.S. broadcast network. And that conversation was about an hour long. We found him to be warm, smart, giving with his time. And it was an extraordinary moment for him. And it was one more way that he stood out from his predecessors during a papacy that was known for great change and great compassion.
The Holy Father set the tone with his first official act as Pope, reversing a centuries-old tradition. I want to ask you a favor, he said. Before the bishop blesses the people, I ask that you would pray to the Lord to bless me. He named himself after Francis of Assisi, a saint known for his simplicity and humility. The first pope to hail from the Americas, the first Jesuit pope said he wanted a poorer church, one that would include the excluded, rather than living in the lavish papal apartments where popes have lived for hundreds of years. He set an example by choosing to live at the Santa Marta, a simple guest house on Vatican grounds. That's where we met him in April 2024. His desire to reach out to ordinary people sent the bulletproof Pope-mobiles into storage. I cannot greet people from inside a sardine can, Francis famously explained, even if it is made of glass. He'd become one of the most popular public figures in the world, regularly speaking up for
that kind of comes with the territory of being the Pope. You know? I don't think that was specific to this Pope. I feel like when you become the Pope, that's automatic. It's like it's kind of in the job title. You are technically supposed to command influence over 1 billion people. I don't know how many people are still like, what's the number of Catholics around the planet? 1.4 billion. The global Catholic population increased by 1.15% between 2022 and 2023, rising from approximately 1.39 billion to 1.4 billion.
The voiceless and leading by example, whether dining with the homeless, washing prisoners' feet, or providing a home in Italy for migrants and refugees fleeing lands torn by war or economic instability. He was a tireless advocate for the rights of migrants, even taking the rare step of delving into a nation's politics when he criticized the Trump administration's plans to deport millions, saying it violated human dignity. The Holy Father pushed for progress in combating climate change, projecting imagery of the crisis on the front of St. Peter's Basilica, and becoming the first pope to issue official Vatican documents on the topic. He reformed the Curia, the central administration of the Church, appointing lay men and women to run Vatican offices.
All this time, I just figured the Pope was a final boss of child molesters. How did I not know how base this dude was? You're not wrong to think that this guy is different. Like the previous popes literally were. So I'm gonna be honest, like you're not wrong to think that at all. You're historically on the money. Oddly, no mention of Palestine. Yeah, it's interesting that the Pope basically used his last year on this planet consistently advocating for the emancipation of Palestinians and routinely yelling at the Trump administration and yelling at like the rest of the world on the inevitability of climate collapse and also migration and how horrible we were behaving to people from the global south. And oddly enough, they just kind of mention it from the perspective of like, he hated Trump. He said, orange man bad.
Positions historically reserved for cardinals and bishops. During the coronavirus lockdown, he continued to give his public prayers, the People's Pope in St. Peter's Square with no people. Francis made a daring first ever papal trip to Iraq, despite immense security risks. In the last years of his life,
he also, dude, what the is, dude, this is sick. Look at this. That is metal as hell, dude. Okay, listen. He also was like his last picks in Cardinals was crazy. He brought in an Iranian Cardinal, and I think like one from Afghanistan, maybe was it Afghanistan? I think he brought a guy from Iran, one from Ukraine. Like he did some cool shit. Palestinian one too, yeah.
Nearly every appearance included prayers for peace in both Gaza and Ukraine.
Can you help negotiate peace?
Rezo mucho por la paz.
What I can do is pray. I pray a lot for peace, and also to suggest, please stop, negotiate. A bad deal is always better than an ugly defeat, is it not?
Over time, his papacy.
Oh, the reason why they also, I think he was like pro-peace in Ukraine as well, and I think that's part of the reason why people are saying he had bad takes on Ukraine or whatever.
Began to be defined by a topic he did not choose, the wave of clerical sex abuse scandals that stretched to the very highest levels of the church. He was accused at first of being tone deaf in his slow response to the crisis. But then in 2019, the Pope made sweeping changes to allow for greater accountability and transparency. Francis abolished the top level.
Didn't he do Cuba with O'Bungler? Yeah, he went to Cuba. He went to Mexico and he went to Cuba, but he never actually returned, from what I understand, to like Argentina.
Level confidentiality of pontifical secret.
You have said zero tolerance.
No hay que tolerar.
It cannot be tolerated. When there is a case of a religious man or woman who abused.
Yeah, chatter saying why they didn't know this guy was base is exactly because he was base. Many didn't like his takes. It's funny because I've talked about this. I've talked about the woke Pope a little bit in the past, every now and then. But yes, the reason why there isn't like broad media coverage on how woke this Pope was until he died is because he was woke.
Abuses, the full force of the law falls upon them.
Nobody likes to hear. Nobody likes to be constantly reminded of their own inherent hypocrisy. Okay.
In this, there has been a great deal of progress.
A few weeks after we interviewed Francis, it was reported that he used a homophobic slur in 2 private meetings. But in his more than a decade as Pope, he voiced support for bringing the LGBTQ community into the church. That push started.
Yeah. Bringing the LGBT community into the church just now. The joke is the Vatican has always been up to gay shit. And I don't mean like, I'm not even talking about like pedophilia, okay? I'm talking like straightforwardly. So much of this structure down to like, don't they have to make the Pope sit on a chair with a hole underneath it and then fondle his balls to make sure that it's a man. Like, there's so much gay shit. I mean, you're dressed around in robes all day, every day. You're getting the finest. You're getting the, you're always wearing the finest fabrics. His main tailor is the gayest man in Italy. And that's saying something because most Italians are very gay.
Started aboard a papal flight just months into his tenure. Who am I to judge, he said. While he may have received widespread credit for changing the tune of the church, as one Vatican reporter puts it, the lyrics remain the same. Despite drawing fire from church conservatives for being too liberal, he reaffirmed church doctrine opposing gay marriage, but allowed those in a same-sex union to be blessed.
The chair ball fondling thing might be a myth. Yeah, the myth of the papal toilet chair. Legend holds that the newly elected popes in the Middle Ages had to present their genitals for inspection to confirm that they were male. However fictitious of a figure Pope Joan may have been, just the mere possibility of her existence was supposed to be enough to frighten the church. Blame for this, the ritual can be laid at the skirts of Pope Joan, who may or may not have existed in the Middle Ages. As the story goes, Pope Joan was a convincing crossdresser and a great academic who managed to rise all the way to the pontificate. She served as a pope for 2 years and invited no suspicions of her true identity until, during a procession from St. Peter's to St. John Lateran, she went into early labor and gave birth. Religious scholar Thomas F.X's noble study of Pope Joan notes that historians can't seem to agree on anything about her, including the date and place of her birth or the timeline of her tenure as pope. Some claim she lived in the 11th century, while others place her as far back as the 9th. However fictitious of a figure Pope Joan may have been, just the mere possibility of her existence was supposed to be enough to frighten the church into cutting a hole in a chair and subjecting all future popes to an embarrassing ordeal. Allegedly, the elected was made to strip from the waist down in front of an audience and then lower himself onto the chair so a medical practitioner could examine his genitals. Historian Ferdinand Leroy adds to the story, writing that after the examination, the physician would announce to the crowd, "Duos habetet bene pendentes." He has 2 testicles and they dangle nicely. This may have been enough to perhaps make the new pope wish that he just stayed a bishop or a cardinal instead. Noble writes that the myth of the papal toilet chair is just that, a myth. He argues that it's the invention of imaginative historians adding some fun to stodgy Vatican history. In my headcanon, it's real. It's another one about a 2 meatball and they dangle quite nice. Look at my pope. Mamma mia.
The Catholic rules for pretty much everything from birth control to ordaining women were unchanged. Hailing from South America, Pope Francis's simple style was a product of his humble beginnings. Jorge Mario Bergoglio was born in 1936 in Buenos Aires to an immigrant Italian railway worker and a housewife.
Search for on the top 3 candidates for the new pope, Pier Battista Pizzaballa. Hey, from Ukraine, 20 miles from the front line. Yeah, no, I know. I remember when he was appointed. I thought it was crazy, the name.
As a young man, he lost part of a lung to an infection.
Mamma mia! It's a Mr. Pissaballs. Yeah, that's right.
Worked at menial jobs and studied chemistry. Ordained at the late age of 32, he made visiting slums and caring for the poor of Buenos Aires a fixture of his ministry. Francis claimed he only brought a small bag to the conclave that elected him because he expected to be going back home to Argentina. Instead, he became one of the oldest popes in history, having traveled to more than 60 countries and keeping a busy schedule until the final days of his life. But he wasn't immune to health issues, using a wheelchair since 2022 and spending weeks in the hospital in 2023. The toll of the papacy, raising persistent questions of retirement after his predecessor, Pope Benedict XVI, resigned, the first pope to do so in almost 600 years.
So you have no plans to resign or retire? I know you don't like this question.
Yeah, and then J.D. Vance just assassinated him, dude. Gone so young. Rest in peace. R.I.P. Taken from us far too soon, far before his time. J.D. Vance, the agent of Satan, the Catholic convert, the adult Catholic convert, J.D. Vance. That also makes it funnier, by the way. J.D. Vance literally is an adult Catholic convert, chat.
No, la diga, sí.
Not at all. Ask all you want. It has never occurred to me.
When you look at the world, what gives you hope?
Todo.
Everything.
Uno ve tragedias.
You see tragedies,
Pero ve
but you also see so many beautiful
tantas
things.
cosas lindas. Uno ve madres heroicas.
You see heroic mothers,
Hombres heroicos.
heroic men, men who
Hombres
have
que
hopes and
tienen ilusión,
dreams,
mujeres que miran
women who
adelante.
look to the future.
Eso a mí me da
That
mucha
gives me a lot
esperanza.
of hope.
La gente quiere vivir.
People want to live.
La gente
People
va
forge
adelante.
ahead, and people
La
are
gente
fundamentally
es
good.
fundamentalmente buena.
Fundamentally good. I believe that too. Nora, I loved his expression when you asked him about retirement. I thought that was priceless. As you said in your piece, he was a pope who made big changes to the papacy. So do you think that made him controversial? Because a lot of people thought that he was more inclusive than many of his predecessors.
That is true, Gail. I mean, Pope Francis was a lightning rod on a number of these issues, but he was also trying to make the Catholic Church more inclusive. You know, there are about 1.4 billion people around the world that say they are Catholic. About 20% of Americans associate with the Catholic faith. But yes, on many of these issues, it caused controversy. But I think at the end of the day, as scholars and those who have studied this church will say, you know, he changed the tune of the Catholic Church, but not the lyrics. But there's still much to say about his legacy, because many of the cardinals that will gather soon in this conclave were appointed by Pope Francis, and they are to, in his model and in his image in some ways, embrace many of the same things. So they are to carry on his legacy, and we'll see how much of the church continues to open its heart, as Pope Francis told me.
You know, Nora, I can't get over some of the decisions he made as Pope, in particular his decision to not live in the apostolic palace, that 12-room apartment, and instead take the 2-room guest house in the hostel, eat his meals with others. It's a lifestyle choice that goes all the way back to his time in Buenos Aires, where he when he was Archbishop, would cook at home, simple life. He drove a Ford Focus, compact car around, none of these big, you know, every aspect of his life, from what he wore to what he ate to where he lived, was humble. Could you talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, I mean, look at what he's wearing. I mean, not the red regal robes that normal popes wear. Instead, the plain white cassock, that silver cross, not a gold cross that we might usually see on cardinals. And that's in part because he was the first in so many ways, not only the first pope from the Americas, but the first Jesuit pope. And I covered that conclave, some 12 years ago. And I had a guess that he might call himself Francis. He's the first pope to be called Francis after St. Francis of Assisi, who is known for his humility.
The Pope is dead, and you're coming in the chat. Stop coming.
And modesty. And that has really been the hallmark of his papacy. And that's in part why the Holy Father spent so much time talking about migrants during his papacy, because he talked about the globalization of indifference. He asked people to think about why migrants leave their home. They are fleeing.
Bro, we got a commie pope, and there's literally still hitting the most like libtarded lines when describing his positions. He was basically running around being like, market forces are the forces of Satan. And these guys are like, he wanted everyone to be nice to one another. He wanted everyone to be nice to one another. Every day he was like, Israel's doing a genocide. I think we need to stop this. What is happening? They're doing unlimited baby murder. And they're like, oh, he just wanted everyone. He wanted people to be nice. He wanted the Israel and Palestinians to hold hands together. All that reaction from you is going in the next CNN intro reel. Average hog parent response. I just saw the Pope died. I am glad. We need a good Pope. He was a communist. I think he went to purgatory. Dude, American Catholics are going to hell. If hell is real, I'm sorry, like 90% of American Catholics are there, all right? It is just being an American across the board, automatically you're Your Hitlerian particles are so prominent, dude. Holy shit. The average American's position is Adolf Hitler on so many issues.
Or injustice, poverty. And so that is why it's led him to clash with the current administration, but also I think will be one of his defining moments.
If you're Christian, thanking God that the Pope died, you're going to hell. You don't abide by any principles. What the f? It's crazy. Anyway, in brief Easter appearance at the Vatican before he died, Pope Francis urged yet again for a Gaza ceasefire. As the most Irish Catholic in the U.S., I'm making a new rule. I don't practice, but I grew up Catholic, so I have 10 siblings, and I went to daily mass and served on the altar, etc. But adult converts like J.D. Vance have gotten so annoying, they should make it like Zoroastrianism, where you have to be born into it. Yes, I'm gatekeeping. You phonies didn't endure 3 hours of midnight mass, or guilt everyone, or the guilt, or everyone being drunks or creepy priests. Yeah. The zealotry of a convert is very real, but it's particularly annoying when it comes to the new wave of adult Catholic converts. They're so goddamn annoying. They are the ones who are also the most they're the ones who are also the most anti-woke pope out there.